He owns and operates the Pack a Day podcast that airs 365 days a year with over 12 million views on YouTube. A new adventure begins. It's time for the Pack a Day radio show with Andy Herman on 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook and on the free Odyssey app.
I don't know if Matthew Golden is going to be a superstar or not at the NFL level, but you can see in person why the Packers like this kid. He's fast, he's explosive, he is so smooth in everything he does, and he got easy separation all the way through the practice, causing fits for the Colts DBs, including, veteran cornerbacks like Charvarius Ward. Extremely impressive looking rookie.
Good morning, Packers Nation. Happy Tuesday. Welcome into the Pack a Day radio show. We are live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan studios and powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. That was Sam Monson, courtesy of the Check the Mic podcast. Actually, he was just live on Twitter, I actually think he was, but he is from the Check the Mic podcast, and he is going to be joining us today, 8:20 a.m. He's from the 33rd team in the aforementioned Check the Mic podcast. So excited to have him on today. He'll be joining us around 8:20 a.m. As always, would love for you to join the show as well. And there are numerous ways that you can do so. Nicolay Law Fan Talk and Text Line, 414-677-1250. Text us. You can also call us. And if you're watching on YouTube or if you want to join us on YouTube, you can also just shoot your comments there. And we can also get those throughout the course of today's show as well. Tommy, our super producer, is also joining us. Tommy, welcome in. How are you doing, my friend?
Very good. It's happy Tuesday. A little wet outside, but it's a good day so far.
Yeah, very much so. You are now, after what we thought was going to be like quadruple duty yesterday, and you ended up basically doing the double leadoff shows yesterday. Now you have double leadoff show duty again today, I'm assuming, with a doubleheader again?
We do. Yeah,
there you go.
It's just a constant cycle. I've actually brought a dresser here now because I'm just starting to slowly moving into this place.
The fact you haven't done that already is, it speaks volumes, because I don't know what you've been thinking, because that probably should have been done a long time ago. And what my hope is for you is that we get one of the games, postponed again until tomorrow, and then that day we get that one postponed, just one more until the next day, and we just keep going through this in like a fake doubleheader every single day.
I hope you stub your toe today, Andy. That's what I hope. That's the pain I wish you have today.
That's very fair and warranted, to say the least. We've got a lot to get into today. I think the biggest thing right now, and it just feels, I think, at the moment is probably the best way I can put it, is everyone's hurt on the Packers. At least it's what it feels like. It's not, and I understand that this is training camp and these things happen. And if I had to guess, if all of a sudden this was a regular season week and the Lions were coming to town this coming Sunday, that injury list might look a little bit different. Maybe. I don't like. It's crazy how many injuries there are right now on this team. Yesterday, there were 7, if you want to kind of count 3 of them that we already knew about, but 7 new players that practiced last Thursday during joint practice, the last time we saw them practice, that did not practice yesterday. Those 7 players include Kenny Clark with a back injury. That's not great. LVN with a back injury. That's not great. Aaron Banks with a back injury. This is his 3rd time being out with some form of a back injury. That's really not great. Jacob Monk with a hamstring injury. Yay, another hamstring. Marshawn Lloyd, who we knew was going to be out and missed some time with a hamstring injury. Baron Sorrell with a knee injury, which again we knew from the preseason game. And then Omar Brown, who had the lung issue. And I don't think we actually, Matt LaFleur didn't speak yesterday, so I don't think we got clarity if he's out of the hospital or not. That's 7 new players, including starting defensive tackle, Kenny Clark, starting defensive end, LVN, starting left guard, Aaron Banks, your 8th offensive lineman in Jacob Monk, your number 2 running back in Marshawn Lloyd, rotational defensive end in Baron Sorrell, and then, probably a safety who is, if we're being realistic, probably practice squad, but still, that's a good chunk of players. And then, by the way, Christian Watson, starting wide receiver, remains out. Jaden Reed, starting wide receiver, remains out. Dontavian Wicks, rotational wide receiver, remains out. Nate Hobbs, starting corner, remains out. Xavier McKinney, starting safety. Zane Anderson, backup safety / core special teamer. Colin Oliver, 5th round pick. John Williams, 7th round pick. Savion Williams, 3rd round pick. All remain out. 16 players in total, including a good chunk of starting players and or players who have roles on this team in some significant way. Tommy, our pets' heads are falling off. Everything is going not great at the moment. And again, I know that this is part of the training camp process. Hopefully, the vast majority of these players are going to be ready to go for Packers-Lions week. And once that week starts, all of a sudden some of those injuries start to heal up. But you still don't want to see this many injuries as you're starting to get ready for the regular season, especially when you have Detroit and Washington in the first handful of games of the regular season.
No, and I think that's a great point too, Andy, is not even that, okay, the fear is that it will keep them out for training camp so that they're injured, but like they're behind, it almost feels like, right? And we've been talking about how the offense seems behind and the defense hasn't really impressed outside of a couple of, key standouts. And then really they saved themselves in that Indianapolis game as well. But if they're behind, like you start things off with a very meaningful football game at the beginning. It's not just against a good football team. It's not like they are only playing the Commanders week 1, which is a good football team, but it's less meaningful. The Detroit Lions are going to be a good football team and a meaningful football game at that as well. Division record was terrible last year for Green Bay, and maybe it benefits you to play Detroit, a very solid, supposed to be good team this year early in the season without them catching a rhythm or finding a groove. But you are also behind already, and you cannot afford to have the same division record you had last year. 1-5 in the division is just not acceptable for Green Bay Packers.
There's a non-zero chance that this game could decide the division when all is said and done. Like that's how big this game is. And this is, by the way, why I don't love division games week 1, but it is what it is. Your schedule's your schedule. You got to play who's in front of you. It's the same thing for Detroit. They have to get ready to come to Green Bay. Green Bay's still the favorites in that game, by the way, by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. So, this is not an easy or an easy game for either team. They both have to come and figure out a way to find a way to pick up a win. But yeah, right now it's just everything just feels a little bit off. And I didn't even mention, by the way, Jordan Love, I should say, is out there with the wrap on his left hand and not being able to be a full participant and do 11-on-11s because of his hand injury. So like there's a lot of injuries that they are having to navigate at the moment. It's not great. They did sign a couple new players. They signed new defensive tackle Devontae O'Malley and safety Jalen Simpson. They released Garnett Hollis, who was a corner/safety, and then they waived injured Keith Randolph, a young defensive tackle who had actually had he was the one who had in that preseason game had that Dikembe Mutombo-esque rejection where he just batted the pass down right in the quarterback's face. So he was having a nice training camp in preseason, and unfortunately he was injured, and they waived him with that injury designation. So a couple new players in camp yesterday. Again, Devontae O'Malley, defensive tackle, and Jalen Simpson, a safety. But what we really want to see is not new random young players practicing out there. We want to see the main important players practicing. There was some sliver of good news when it came to the injury report. Xavier McKinney was working-ish. And what I mean by that is he was off to the side with a trainer, but with his helmet on, doing some safety-type backpedaling and things like that. It was the first sign in a while that he was actually doing some work. So usually that's, again, kind of like the ramp-up where it starts with that, then maybe some individual work, and then after that, potentially teamwork. So hopefully a good sign for Xavier McKinney. Brian Gutekunst, Matt LaFleur, pretty much everyone has said the expectation is that McKinney will be ready to go for week 1. It seems like he's on that trajectory, and it was great to see him doing anything out there yesterday. Dontavian Wicks and Savion Williams were doing some light running on the side is what I would say. Again, that's still especially when you've got a calf injury, when you've got a hamstring injury. Seeing those guys do anything and not just either, kind of on the exercise bike or not doing anything at all, just usually, again, just a slight ramp up to their activity. So good to see Wicks and Savion doing a little bit of light running yesterday. Romeo Doubs did return. You did get one player back. So despite losing 7 new players to injury, you did get one player back, and that was Romeo Doubs. And then Jordan Love was able to practice in some capacity. He did not do 11-on-11s, anything that he would need to be under center or catch a shotgun snap, anything like that he did not do. But he was able to do 7-on-7s. They came up with some really creative stuff. They had him basically take like a ball off of a high stool that was like at waist height, so that he could just grab that ball with his right hand and not have to do anything with his left hand. His left hand was wrapped, and then because it was raining, they had his whole left arm basically in like a shopping bag so that the cat or like the wrap wouldn't get wet and everything. It's just this is the way things are going. Your quarterback his arm is in a shopping bag while it was a rainy, windy day at practice yesterday. That's just how it's been going. So a couple small pieces of good news, but still overall not an ideal situation from an injury standpoint. Go ahead, Tommy.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how many of these injuries do you anticipate lasting till week 1, Andy?
That's kind of the interesting thing, right? Sorry, let's go through these a little bit. Kenny Clark, back injury, we have no idea. All of them yesterday, LVN back, Aaron Banks back, and Jacob Monk hamstring. We have no idea the severity. I'll say this. With Aaron Banks, this is the third time he has popped up missing today with a back type issue. That tells me, and again, I'm not a doctor or anything on any of this, but that tells me that is something that might be lingering a little bit and keeps kind of like flaring up. That gives me cause for concern because we know whether it's in baseball or football or any of these, you get that back injury that just kind of keeps nagging and nagging and nagging. It can really affect you. So I do have some concern on that one. He's been able to play through it so far, so hopefully that's something that he can continue to do. But I do have a little bit of concern there. Jacob Monk with a hamstring. There's never been like, oh, he's got a hamstring injury and then he's like back the next day. That's pretty rare. So my guess is he's going to miss at least a little bit of time. And he's probably your 8th offensive lineman, which is again you're running low on those as it is already. Not to mention just some of the injuries with Aaron Banks and everything like that are really taxing your depth. Marshawn Lloyd, we know, is going to miss some time. That one theoretically could go into the season. Barron Sorrell is going to miss some time for Matt LaFleur. That one could go into the season. Omar Brown, the hospital lung thing, is that something that like once he's cleared from the hospital, there's no more real risk and he can go practice? Or is that like, yeah, they're going to have to monitor that for weeks? I'm not sure how much that one affects anything in the long term with their depth at safety, but that one could definitely linger. Christian Watson's going to miss the first 4 weeks of the season, at least it would seem. Jaden Reed, expectation is hopefully back for the start of the regular season. Dontavian Wicks, it seems like the expectation is hopefully back for the start of the regular season. Nate Hobbs yesterday gave an update and said that he's progressing well. And the initial timeline was hopefully, fingers crossed, available for the start of the regular season. Xavier McKinney should be good to go. Zane Anderson's a little bit one that's tougher to read, whether that one could linger or not. Colin Oliver, we heard from Matt last week. It was either Matt or Brian that hopefully he was going to be able to get back here practicing relatively soon. We have not seen that. Also, in a way, it almost is it could be detrimental to bring him back to practice at this point because he's on the physically unable to perform list. And once you take him off, you cannot put him back on that list. Mm-hmm. And if you want to use that designation going into the season, which would knock him out the first 4 games, but kind of give you that extra roster spot, you may wait until that first 4 weeks is done, give him more time to recover. Then you get like a 3-week ramp up period from there. So that's kind of an interesting one. John Williams is going to go into the season, and then Savion Williams with his hamstring, we don't know how long that one's going to last either. So it's not dire at the moment of like, oh my God, all of these guys are going to miss week 1. Right now, we know basically Christian Watson, Travis Glover, John Williams. Those are the ones we know, and it's not looking maybe great for Marshawn Lloyd and Barron Sorrell. But outside of that, it is theoretically possible that everyone else on that injury list is available. And then, Christian Watson as well, as we know is going to be out. But everyone else on that list is available for week 1. But it's hard to tell. And it's just more of like, it's not even just like the quality of the injury. It's now getting to be the quantity of the injury. And as we get closer and closer to the regular season, like it is definitely more and more concerning. It not only, again, from what you were mentioning earlier from a practice standpoint, but just the question of, are they going to be able to play against Detroit? And then 4 days later against Washington.
Yeah, I completely agree. Right. That's the other thing about the first 2 weeks, right? There's really no break. The Packers get the division game to start, and then you got to go up against another playoff team, NFC Championship game last year, 4 days later. That's not a lot of breathing room in between, and it's just, at what point are you supposed to be concerned about the injuries? Because it feels like we are at about that point, Andy.
Yeah, I think we've reached it. Again, I don't know that we need to be panicked about the injuries, right? We could see a lot of these players starting next week, again, as you kind of transition into regular season and like final cut down time. You could see like a lot of these players start returning next week, and maybe it ends up, again, being no concern whatsoever. But at this point, with the quantity of the injuries and the quality of the players. I mean, Kenny Clark, LVN, Aaron Banks, Marshawn Lloyd, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Nate Hobbs, Xavier McKinney, Savion Williams, and again, Jordan Love fighting through some stuff. That is a good chunk of talented players on your team that are going to have a major role for the team this year. So yeah, I would say that there's a little bit of nervousness, angst, anxiety, not panic yet, but all of a sudden if we go out today and there's 3 more players on that list. I mean, at some point you need players to go out there and practice, play in your joint practice this week, play in preseason this coming week against Seattle. So yeah, it's not panic fest, but it's definitely a concern at the moment.
Yeah, I feel like I'm there. That's why I asked, because again, this is too many piling up at this point where it's not like preseason has been all sunshine and rainbows already, and you would like to see some progress being made before week 1 and have some sort of level, as opposed to going in super dark on a lot of players for the Green Bay Packers.
And what I'll just say on top of this, right? If Green Bay was having the most immaculate training camp ever, most immaculate preseason, just blowing teams out of the water, everyone looks amazing, everyone looks like $1 million, everyone stays healthy, and they go out and lose to Detroit in week 1, it's all forgotten anyway. Like it's like, oh, who cares? They lost to Detroit week 1. And if all of this, injury stuff that's kind of been, annoying if nothing else, and, not having the perfect preseason and training camp and maybe having some issues here and there, if they go out and beat Detroit in week 1, nobody cares, right? So this all still comes down to this team will not be judged on what happened in training camp. They will not be judged on what happened in preseason. None of this ultimately matters. But what and to your point earlier, Tommy, we're getting to the point, though, that some of the lack of preparation and time practicing could affect them for those opening games. And I think that's more where this concern is. And again, will some of these players actually be available or not? I get that it's next man up, and I get that this is the NFL. Welcome to Injury City. This is going to happen every single year and throughout pretty much every single team. But it does feel like Green Bay just a little bit more snake bit at the moment. I'll go ahead, Tommy.
Yeah, I was just going to say I agree.
Let's get to what Jordan Love did yesterday at practice, because I think that was kind of the key takeaway. You're listening to the Pack-A-Day radio show. We are live from the 1250 AM on 105.7 FM, the Fan Studios, and of course, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Just a moment, we're going to be talking to Sam Monson. But as we get into, again, practice yesterday, Jordan Love was sort of the key takeaway. Again, he could only do 7-on-7s, could not do 11-on-11 work. Because of that, they primarily did 7-on-7s yesterday, did not do a ton of 11-on-11s. Remember, it was very rainy. It was very windy as well, so conditions were not the best. To start off, he had McCole Hardman deep down the left field sideline. I believe it was Carrington Valentine in coverage. Had him by probably a step and a half. Love threw it to him deep. This was definitely one where you could see the ball affected by the wind. It hung up just enough. It was still there, right, to Hardman, but it hung up just enough in order for Carrington Valentine to be able to get back in that play. Just barely tipped it at the last second and made it incomplete. That's one in perfect conditions. If he misses it, you're like, ugh, like you got to be able to hit that. A little bit more accident forgiveness in this one, but that's one that he had Hardman open by a step and a half. He then came back, threw a bullet to Malik Heath over the middle of the field with Keyshawn Nixon in coverage. Nice completion there. He then went back to McCole Hardman up the seam, and he forced this one for sure. This one was a bad decision and a bad throw. He had basically McCole Hardman triangulated by about 3 different players up the seam. And then I think because he was trying to fit it in such a tight spot, he put a little extra mustard on it, but when doing so, overthrew it. And with that, he overthrew it right into the waiting arms of Javon Bullard for an interception. So Bullard gets the pick there. Hit a check down to Josh Jacobs that Jacobs bobbled, and it went right into the waiting arms of Tyron Hopper. And I think Hopper was so surprised by it that he almost was caught off guard, and Josh Jacobs just knocked the ball right out of his hands. So should have been a catch, should have been a pick, and I guess we just broke it even by having it be an incompletion in the end. And then Love hit Tucker Kraft over the middle for a nice pickup. Then a picture perfect, could not be better, corner end zone throw to Matthew Golden. Golden ran a route to get him literally in the back corner of the end zone, had the 2 safeties trailing him barely. It was good coverage on the play, and Jordan Love just lofted that thing, could not have handed it to him any better. One of the better throws of, it was just literally picture perfect. Just lofted it in perfectly, dropped it right in his hands, and then Golden paid it off, catching it in the back corner, getting his 2 feet down for a perfect touchdown play. Love to Golden over Kamal Haddon, a beautiful touch play on the right side where he pump fakes twice and then kind of just lofts it in. And Matthew Golden goes and gets it. Perfect placement on that one as well for Golden to go get that one. Haddon had great coverage. There's no rush on a 7-on-7 play. Play definitely took a little bit of time to develop, but Jordan at least paid it off with a gorgeous throw to Haddon on that one. He then threw over the middle to Luke Musgrave, and that was almost picked as well by Tyron Hopper. Hopper almost 2 interceptions in these 7-on-7s. And then on the last play, Love forced one in the back of the end zone. I believe it was to Tucker Kraft. Evan Williams jumped it and picked it off in the back of the end zone. So in totality, Jordan Love was 16 of 24, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions on the day. That was per Bill Huber, who was keeping track of those stats. And I think, the one of the incompletions should have definitely been caught by Jacobs. There was another one that was dropped as well. So that could have easily been 18 of 24. The interceptions, definitely noteworthy, though. Also missed a deep shot to McCole Hardman. So some really good throws. The 2 touchdowns to Golden were fantastic, but a couple forces and misses to McCole Hardman and Tucker Kraft, 2 of which led to interceptions. All right, that does it for our practice breakdown and, of course, our injury breakdown earlier. We have got Sam Monson coming up, 33rd Team Check the Mic podcast. He'll be joining us momentarily. I should note that Football Talk on the Fan is presented by Paramount Plus. You can't count on much these days, but you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. Watch your local NFL game live every Sunday on CBS and Paramount Plus all season long. Visit ParamountPlus.com/NFL to get started today. Right now, Milwaukee, we have 69 and cloudy, high of 75, low of 65 later today. We'll be back with Sam Monson momentarily. This is the Pack-A-Day Radio Show powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Welcome back to the Pack-A-Day Radio Show. We are live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM, the Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Reminder, the Mason Crosby Show coming up 9 to 11 today. But right now, joining us is Sam Monson, co-host of the Check the Mic podcast, part of the 33rd Team. You can find him on social media at Sam Monson NFL. Sam, wonderful to be chatting with you. How are you doing, my friend?
Doing well. How are you?
I am fantastic. Really appreciate you taking some time to join us this morning. I know you were out at Packers-Colts joint practice last week, which now in football terms already feels like forever ago, but you did get a live look at the 2025 Green Bay Packers. So just wanted to kind of get some of your takeaways from that joint practice experience.
Yeah, so we drove up to Indianapolis, a couple hours away from where we are located in Cincinnati. Caught the joint practice there. Those are always fun. Like, we try and get to kind of, where we are in the Midwest, we're within shooting distance of a few teams. So if they coordinate or if they time up their joint practices, you can sort of try and get a bunch of teams in a few days. Those are always fun practices to see. I think two things always jump out to me when you're watching those joint practices. Number one, for those of us that aren't in training camp kind of all the time regularly, you do get that first glimpse of guys in the flesh, and there's always one or two guys that jump out and you see the crazy athleticism or the size or the arm strength or whatever it is, the thing that anyway, but it's always interesting having it reinforced in person and seeing just what the difference is between those guys and other people. And then the other thing is just trying to get an idea of the kind of deployment of people. I don't think you can take too much from performances and individual practices, overall production, any of that kind of thing, because it's so day to day. It's so kind of random one day to the next. And, you really need those beat writers that are there every day and can kind of say, look, over 3 weeks of training camp, this has been a general trend. Yesterday, it wasn't, that kind of thing. So I think you get into trouble focusing too much on performances. But I think if you get an idea of sort of how guys are getting deployed and that kind of thing, it's interesting.
So from a Packers standpoint, who was maybe a player or two that kind of stood out to you with either that athleticism or maybe just how they were deployed and how they were utilized?
The most obvious one, I think, is Matthew Golden. Obviously, he's been such an interesting draft prospect even before the Packers selected him. You have this guy whose career was not extensive in terms of the amount of time he was a number one guy or even a significant threat. Before he got to Texas, he was not doing an awful lot at all. Even when he got to Texas, he was arguably the number two receiver in that group before late in the year, he gets the opportunity. He becomes a number one. He takes over and puts up a couple of huge games. And then you have the added kind of confusion of he runs this incredible 40 time, which surprised everybody. Like, nobody saw him running that kind of time. And that just added a whole different layer of, well, is he actually that fast? Why doesn't it look that way on tape? And all those kinds of, that was a really intriguing player. I will say you watch him in the flesh and you can see what they like in him, right? He's obviously quick, fast, smooth is the other thing. And he was just a difficult cover for the Colts DBs the entire game, and not just, young players, rookies. I mean, Charvarius Ward had trouble sticking with him on anything that wasn't a straight go ball. He looks like a guy that's going to have an instant impact and be a really impressive player. And I think also, based off the stuff that I saw, just from a deployment point of view, it was interesting. A couple of years ago, we saw the Packers and a joint practice against the Bengals here. And what was interesting is how much they had designed around Luke Musgrave, because he was such an athlete. They had him in motion constantly. They had all these kind of plays that were drawn up to basically get Luke Musgrave the ball. And obviously, he gets hurt. He hasn't become the player that he was supposed to. And sort of Tucker Kraft becomes the tight end there. But it almost feels like Matthew Golden is now getting those opportunities. Like, he's in motion constantly. He's the guy that's causing problems in the defense. So it feels like Matt LaFleur, every time he has one of those guys, these sort of special athletes, he's trying to build this entire offense around him, or at least use him to make everything else tick.
Yeah, I think that's a huge observation. And yeah, from a Musgrave standpoint, he definitely feels like he's fallen out of favor a little bit. Obviously, Tucker Kraft being as good as he's been takes a piece of that away. But from Matthew Golden's standpoint, one of the things, and you talked about the deployment, is they're using him. They lined him up in almost like that H-back role in one play in preseason. They've been using him out wide. They've been using him deep, intermediate, short. Like he'll do just about everything in this offense. And for a rookie who, again, like you mentioned, didn't become kind of the number one option at Texas until the end of last year, they clearly want to have him involved in the offense in any way possible. They're not holding anything back from him. Now, a lot of the injuries to wide receiver for Green Bay are maybe having a little bit of an effect, but the truth of the matter is they were doing that with him before Wicks and Reed and Dobbs and some of these injuries even existed. Savion Williams, same thing. So yeah, I do think he is going to have a major role in this offense. And yeah, like you said, some of the suddenness, the route running ability, those things have absolutely, stood out. Sam, as well as anybody, one of the real issues for Green Bay last year was drops and just mistakes from the wide receivers. If Matthew Golden, and it's a lot of pressure to put on a rookie wide receiver at any time, but we've certainly seen some first round rookie wide receivers go out and have pretty fantastic years. If he can be that guy that kind of is, whether we want to call it a number one or a go-to or whatever, just in some key situations, come up with some of those big plays and use that smoothness and suddenness to be a big time weapon for Green Bay. How much does this change the Packers offense in your view?
Yeah, I think it's big. And, I don't think it necessarily needs that number one guy, quote unquote, the way you're saying. It just needed somebody to be able to make those plays consistently. And I think you could still make the argument that, a collection of number twos, or for one of a better term, is still fine as long as they're all reliable and they're going to make those plays when the ball comes their way, and they're not going to, spurn the opportunity when they have to make the play. The problem with Green Bay's receiving core, I don't think has necessarily been the absence of a number one. It's been the group of number twos they have not been consistent, and they haven't made those plays all the time when they've needed to. Now, functionally, if Matthew Golden is the guy, it solves both problems either way. So, but it will be interesting if it works out that way, because people will automatically say, well, the problem was they just didn't have this number one guy, and now the number one fixed everything. But I think you're right. Like if Golden shows that he can be a player that can consistently make those plays and be their go-to guy when they need a play, it does change a lot. I mean, that cost Green Bay a lot last season. It cost them in critical situations. And obviously that's paired with Jordan Love needing to, get his best play back together for a stretch, stay healthy. And then I think this is a really high ceiling for an offense as well.
Yeah, I think so. Also, we've got Sam Monson joining us. You can find him on social media at Sam Monson NFL, co-host of Check the Mic podcast, part of the 33rd team. This is an interesting team in Green Bay where for the past 2 years, they've been the youngest team in football. I think they surprised some teams in 2023, especially that big win in Dallas, and then really had San Francisco on the ropes with the ability to win, to go to an NFC championship game. Again, kind of caught a lot of people by surprise. And then, come back last year, they're the youngest team in the NFL again. They win a lot of games, but when they played good teams, they pretty consistently lost, including to Philadelphia in the playoffs in the opening week. And now they're in this interesting situation where there's expectations on them once again to be a good team. They're in a very good conference, a very tough division. And now it's the question of, can they go from, hey, they're a good, fun, young team, to taking that next step and actually being a great football team that wins meaningful games in January and hopefully February. Where do you see their expectations, and how do you see them potentially taking that next step into being a true legitimate contender?
Yeah, I mean, the expectations have to be exactly that, right? Let's build on last year. Let's show that we can compete with the contending teams and not just be one of those strange, also ran teams that are good, not great, and get kind of trapped in that, we can make the playoffs in a given year, but we're probably going one and done. Or as soon as we meet one of the real contending teams, that's when we get bounced. And, they're not the only team that's been in that category. Tampa Bay has been in that group as well. I think they're trying to bridge that gap and get to being the elite category. But that's where Green Bay has been, and that's where obviously they want to get past. And they should. I mean, there's no point in having the youngest team in football for multiple years straight, unless you're tapping into a growth potential that group is then going to surpass other teams because they've grown together and they've developed and they've improved. And, so I think that's what the Packers are working on now is, look, this group is talented. It's young. It's got so much potential, but at some point the rubber needs to meet the road and the potential needs to become reality. Otherwise you just assemble this sort of underachieving group that wasn't able to hang with the best teams in the NFL.
Ian Rappaport yesterday kind of made the argument for saying like a team like Green Bay should be the team that's very interested in a player like Micah Parsons. My guess is, and I think most people's guess is that Parsons still ends up a Dallas Cowboy. You also have Trey Hendrickson. That one is a little bit more intriguing to me. Of does he actually end up a Bengal? Just both of these teams are wild cards, meaning you never know what they're going to do at any given moment. If you're Green Bay, you have this collection of young talent. You're maybe a little bit lacking in superstar talent. You've got future draft picks. You've got salary cap banked up. You know, is this the type of move that if, and it's still a major if a Micah Parsons or a Trey Hendrickson legitimately do become available, and it does seem like Hendrickson actually is, would you be, if you're putting your Brian Gutekunst hat on for a moment, would you be aggressive in trying to make this move if you were Green Bay?
Yeah, I mean, Micah Parsons, I don't think is really an option at all.
Okay.
This is what Dallas do. They posture, they create this story. I don't think it's a thing.
Agreed.
Eventually Micah Parsons is going to sign the richest defensive contract in NFL history, and he's going to be a Dallas Cowboy, and it's going to be the latest in the Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb saga, and that's just the way Jerry Jones does contracts, for better or worse. The Trey Hendrickson one, I think, is more interesting because I think the Bengals would listen to offers. Now, I think it would take a big offer to make it happen because it makes them worse, right? Like there's almost no trade you can put on the table that makes the Bengals a better team this year. Now, future, sure, but they know they're making their chances for 2025 worse by trading this guy away. So it has to be a very bad situation and a trade offer good enough to take. But if you're Green Bay, I would absolutely be making phone calls and finding out, how close are we? How close do we think we could get to this deal that they would take? Because you put Trey Hendrickson on this Packers defense, I think it would make a massive difference. And they already have a guy like Rashawn Gary. So it's potentially a force multiplier in terms of, making his life easier and freeing him up against worse competition. And, as much as Trey Hendrickson is 30 years old and you're the long-term prospect of what he's going to be is a little bit nervy. Last year, he was phenomenal. I mean, he was all-pro caliber last season. Maybe not quite in that, there's a few guys like Myles Garrett who in any given year are defensive player of the year. I don't know if Trey Hendrickson is quite in that category, but he's like one rung of the ladder down. He's a consistent force. He's added to his game. He's gotten better year on year. And he's now one of those legitimate game-changing defensive players that is not just able to get pressure, finish that pressure, but he's able to dial up plays at the key times. And, that it seems like that's sort of it's always difficult to know if that's real, but guys like TJ Watt have been able to do that consistently. Chris Jones at defensive tackle for the Chiefs. Those guys are able to almost summon a play when they need one at will, late in the game in the fourth quarter on a third down when everything hangs in the balance. The last year or two, Trey Hendrickson seems to have added that to his game. So I think that would be a phenomenal addition to the Packers if there was any trade they could give Cincinnati to make it happen.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think he would, like you said, be a force multiplier on that defense for the rest of that defensive line and just add a really fun piece for Jeff Hafley after a really impressive defensive performance a year ago. But adding a player like that, I think, gets you into that upper echelon of defenses, or at least gives you the opportunity to be that. We're being joined by Sam Monson. You can find him on social media at Sam Monson NFL, co-host of the Check the Mic podcast. If you're not checking that out and downloading that every single time it is out, you are absolutely missing out. All right, Sam, before we get you out of here, you obviously keep an unbelievable tab on the entirety of the NFL. I want to ask you about where you see kind of things stacking up in the NFC North. My opinion, it's one of the more fun divisions in football. You've got Detroit, and wanting to see if they ultimately make that run to the Super Bowl, or if this has just ended up in a really fun regular season team that never is able to quite get over the hump. And of course, losing Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn is a piece of that as well. Green Bay, we've talked about, and then Minnesota, it's the JJ McCarthy era. Chicago, you get the Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams stuff. So it's a very intriguing division. How do you kind of see this stacking up?
Yeah, it is. It's an interesting division, and it could be a great division depending on, how the teams with question marks pan out. I think we know that Detroit is going to be very good. The only concern really is you lost both coordinators in an offseason. I think they're pretty well insulated from that, the way they do things. Dan Campbell having set the agenda, the tone, the culture there, and promoting from within. The offensive line is a little bit creakier than it's been the last few years as well. That could potentially be an issue. But generally, I think Detroit are going to be one of the best teams in the NFL again. We talked about Green Bay already. They should be very good. The question is, can they become great? So that's two good teams in the division. Minnesota have done incredible work to build around JJ McCarthy. The question is just, what is he going to be? If he's good, if he looks like the rest of that quarterback class from a year ago, the Vikings could well be incredibly good again. And then you've got Chicago and what Ben Johnson's doing there, and how quickly can that come together? You have to basically try and get Caleb Williams back on the rails after his rookie season, where he didn't seem to get coached the right way, and he sort of played into his bad habits. How quickly can Ben Johnson put all that together and get the Bears moving in the right direction? They feel like a team that might be definitely moving in the right direction, but it might take a bit to kind of jump to where the other teams are. So I think you're probably going to end up with two very good teams, one that could be very good, and then the Bears, who are going to be better than they were a year ago, but maybe not quite at the same pitch as the other three.
I think all four of those teams are going to be a pain to play for any opponent as well. And any team that has the NFC North on their schedule is probably not going to be super excited about it. And like you said, if those quarterbacks hit and some of those, question marks go away, yeah, it could be a real crazy division that is really up for grabs over the course of the next multiple seasons. Sam, I cannot thank you enough for taking some time. Tell us all about the Check the Mic podcast and everything that you're doing over there.
Yeah, check the mic anywhere you get your podcasts or on YouTube. We're in our new studio now in downtown Cincinnati. We built this whole thing. We created we had basically a blank canvas, a big concrete box, and we created our little set in there. So it's we're pretty excited about it this season. We're almost into the 3 shows a week territory and kicking off the season for real.
It is not an easy task to keep track of 32 NFL teams and everything that's going on, not to mention all the draft prospects and the stuff that you guys do during the draft. You both do incredible work. It's must listen to every single time. I enjoyed every single time. I appreciate you taking a couple moments with us, and hopefully we can do it again in the near future.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. Again, go follow him on social media at Sam Monson NFL. A huge thank you for him joining us on the Fan Guest Hotline, powered by Gruber Law. One call. That's all. This is the Pack a Day Radio Show. We'll be right back with more right after this.
because that really hurts the team, puts you in a really tough position to try to convert a first down. So that is completely unacceptable in my mind. I appreciate the effort that he plays with, and I thought he did a really nice job. Really, our whole line. There were some scrums in the run game where you could see our line trying to push the pile, and I think we did on one of the touchdown runs by Amar. So I love the effort. It's just you got to be smart in those situations. I didn't get a great look at it, so I'm not quite sure what happened, but we got to clean that up.
Welcome back to the Pack a Day radio show. That was Matt LaFleur on second-round rookie Anthony Belton, courtesy of the Packers. Also, a huge thank you to Sam Monson for joining us this last segment. Always great to catch up on with him and talk ball and talk some Green Bay Packers. Love getting a national perspective on the team, and Sam certainly brings that and so much more. So go follow them him on social media at Sam Monson NFL, and of course his podcast on the Check the Mic podcast as well. Reminder, we got the Mason Crosby Show with Mitch Nellis coming up 9 to 11 today, and also an important PSA for our listeners. The Pack a Day radio show is a podcast as well. You can find us anytime on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite pods. Catch the full episode, listen by individual hour, or jump straight to the highlights. Just open up your favorite baseball podcast, your favorite podcast app, and then search Pack a Day radio show, hit the follow button so you get every minute of every show your way and on your time. I led to baseball, Tommy, because I'm very excited to talk to you. We talked a little bit about leadoff show coming up today, but where were you? Where were you, Tommy, 2 months ago to this day, June 19th?
I was probably here, Andy. I'm not sure what the significance of the date is.
Well, I know where the Brewers were 2 months ago to this day. They were 6.5 games behind the Chicago Cubs. 6.5 games just 2 months ago, 2 little months ago. 2 months later, they're 9 games ahead of the Chicago Cubs.
Yeah.
And then I know we've had like a stat like this almost every single day with how many wins they've had and things like that. I mean, in a span of 2 months, a swing of 15.5 games is beyond remarkable. Obviously picking up that win against the Cubs yesterday. They have 2 more scheduled for today. You've got double leadoff show duty again today. What's the buzz around Milwaukee that I'm not even thinking of with how this team is doing right now?
Yeah, the potential to go up 17.5 games at the end of the day, Andy, with 2 wins today. We got 2 leadoff shows, one starting at noon today for the 121st pitch. Chad Patrick returns to the big league roster as the 27th man today for the doubleheader roster. And then Brandon Woodruff gets the pitch tonight. That leadoff show will start at 6 o'clock. Andy, the Cubs are just in shambles right now. They are. The Brewers' power of friendship is so apparent when you see the Cubs play, where everyone hates baseball right now, and the Brewers are just excited to play every single day, every single pitch at that, Andy. I mean, not even just every day they go in there. Every inning, it is like a whole new game when the Brewers go up. Joey Ortiz, I don't know what the record is, but he will break the record for most ABs with the bases loaded. He just comes up with the bases loaded every single game, continues to produce every time he does. And even when you think that there's nothing happening in Brewers land or in Brewers' favor, they have a play where it's like swinging bunt and they throw it into right field. It just happens all the time right now for Milwaukee. I don't know if it's necessarily that all of it's catching breaks, because it happens way too frequently to say they just keep catching breaks. It has to be something that the Brewers are putting on their opponent. I just can't put my finger on it yet.
I think it's just ultimately doing, like, the Kyle Tucker play is such a great example yesterday, right? Kyle Tucker puts the ball in play. He barely jogs to first base. The Brewers actually have like a bobble on the play, and then they still have plenty of time to throw him out because he's not even remotely trying. With the Brewers, you know how fast they are, and you know they're going to hustle on every single play. So that bobble, sometimes all of a sudden you have that little bobble and you look at first base and the runner's almost there. Then you almost panic again, and you might either overthrow it or underthrow it, or like it puts so much pressure on every single play. And like that, again, that play yesterday, if all of a sudden, Kyle Tucker is hustling out, maybe the Brewers do make a mistake on the throw. Maybe he gets to first base, and maybe that changes the calculus of that entire inning. Maybe it ends up being nothing, but it adds extra outs and extra stress and extra pressure. And you do that exponentially through the course of the game. You're just the casino at some point. Every single odd is in your favor throughout the course of the game. And when that happens, yeah, you're going to lose a couple here or there, just like the casino will lose a couple of hands of blackjack here or there. But you check the ledger at the end of the day or the end of the month or the end of the year, and they're way in the positive. And that's just where Milwaukee is in at the moment, where everything that they do is a stressor for the opponent at all times. And you bring it up perfectly, where you could not have a bigger juxtaposition. If you didn't have enough respect already for the way that the Brewers play baseball, seeing them next to the Chicago Cubs yesterday, where you like it was painful. It was just painful. Like the ball that they threw and it hit, was it Ortiz that they hit in the back with the ball or whatever? I forget who it was, but like the little ball they're trying to get to first base. And it just rolls there, and both guys are just kind of like looking at it like, are you going to get it? Am I going to get it? Like, what's going to happen? And meanwhile, the Brewers are just rounding the bases. Like, this is just, it felt like two totally different teams playing two totally different sports, one enjoying the heck out of it, and the other just being like, oh, we've got to do this 4 more times in the next 3 days. Like, it's just totally different.
Totally different the entire time. And Craig Counsell still has no idea what George Webb is. So
yeah, did you see the quote of him quoting George Webb while he was a manager in Milwaukee?
Clown.
So yeah,
Clown.
Well, why? I don't understand why. There's no advantage gained by that. I don't even know what
like
George Webb is.
It's like when Greg Jennings said the Packers brainwashed him. It's just like the same energy of you go to the Vikings and then it's like, hey, let me talk down upon the last organization I was there with. But why? That organization helped elevate you to get to that point, to get to, Greg Jennings doesn't get a second contract or another contract with a different team if he doesn't put up the production he has with the Green Bay Packers in the past, right? Craig Counsell doesn't become the highest paid manager in baseball history if he doesn't have that success with Milwaukee in years past. So I don't understand all the, I get it from a fan standpoint, and I don't want to say it as an insult, but I don't expect much from fans, and I've learned to stop expecting that much from fans. But like when you're at the professional level, like why cause that beef? Why cause that action with the fans? Now you make the fans look smarter.
Pun intended on beef, or was that on a happy accident with the George Webb?
Yeah, no, sure, pun intended. Yeah,
I did love it. The other crazy thing is just the fact that they can just go and have Chad Patrick chilling in the minors in this situation as well. And again, who knows how he ultimately pitches today, but like having that guy just being like, oh yeah, we, Logan Henderson's hurt and we have, a lot of our pitchers are already set and scheduled. We need an extra guy. Oh yeah, we got Chad Patrick just chilling there as well. Just an embarrassment of riches in that regard as well.
Always. I mean, and it will be for a long time. It will be for a long time, Andy.
Best team in baseball, best farm system in baseball simultaneously. What is life? I don't know. I don't know what to do as a Brewers fan right now. We've not experienced anything quite like this, at least in my lifetime. That's for sure.
No.
We heard from Coach LaFleur on Anthony Belton and just kind of some of the mistakes in that preseason game as we came back from break there. And here's the thing with Anthony Belton that I wanted to get to. Let's get to our Potawatomi Sportsbook final thought of the day as we do this.
You got to do some smart thinking.
It's time for Andy Herman's final thought of the day.
What are you thinking?
Powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook.
What the hell were you thinking?
You're listening to the Pack a Day radio show on 1250 AM and 105.7 FM, The Fan.
All right, I have a new idea, Tommy, that you're going to probably hate. Brian Gutekunst, all right, you can either call him Nick Fury or you can call him Professor Xavier. He is just accumulating extraordinary human beings. That's what he does. He just collects extraordinary human beings. Now, I don't think he has quite the foresight or the ability to maybe mold said human beings like maybe Charles Xavier or Nick Fury does. But this is all he does. He collects Anthony Belton is one of these extraordinary human beings that he went out and collected for this organization. Now, he has to figure out how to utilize his powers, just like, if we want to continue this, some of the X-Men, first of all, when they got there with Charles Xavier. But this is a talented individual that it just needs a little bit of rounding out to figure out how to use his powers correctly. And if he figures it out, he's going to be a very talented individual. When he is asked to block one-on-one, especially in a run blocking situation, this dude is mauling people, throwing guys to the ground, pancaking people at a level that we haven't seen from an offensive lineman in a very long time. Now, in the midst of that, we have a quarter that has 5 penalties. He had a player cross his face on the goal line to make a tackle for loss, and I think it was Israel Abanikanda. Some technique work that really needs a lot of work. But this guy, if he figures it it out, is going to be an extraordinary offensive lineman for them. Now it's just, hey, can we figure this out? And what I'll just add on top of that is there are going to be peaks and valleys with this, we've seen it right now with Jordan Morgan. Everyone was out on Jordan Morgan, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, he looks like a starting caliber offensive tackle. Like, and by the way, there's going to be valleys and there's going to be a dip. He might get into that first regular season game and not be able to perform at quite the level that maybe we were hoping for. And then there's going to be growth from that. Like, there are so many peaks and valleys in the life of a rookie player and a young player in the NFL that you just have to give them time. We will have all the time in the world to criticize Brian Gutekunst for draft picks as their careers come to an end, and we're like, oh yeah, that guy ended up really being terrible, or like, yeah, that guy was amazing. But for now, enjoy the process, enjoy the growth, and hopefully Anthony Belton going forward, we can see a lot of the ups and the high end abilities that he has, and hopefully start to cut out some of those mistakes like we saw in the last preseason game. Tommy, final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I'll save them for another day. We're good.
All right. Well, you have like 13 shows that you can you save them for too if you want to save them up for.
It'll probably get exposed at some point today. Yeah.
There you go. Love that. Tommy, enjoy your billion shows that you're doing today. Double leadoff show duty. And again, no better team in sports. I mean, think about that. No better team in sports that you could be having daily shows on talking, or 2 shows today talking about, than these current Milwaukee Brewers. A huge thank you to you for everything you do on our show here on the Pack-A-Day Radio Show. Stay tuned for the Mason Crosby Show with Mitch Thunder Nellis coming up 9 to 11 right here on The Fan. You can, of course, find the Pack-A-Day podcast 365 days a year, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. We are going to be back tomorrow with Sarah Kelleher of the Pack-A-Day podcast. This has been the Pack-A-Day Radio Show. Enjoy your Tuesday, and as always, go Pack Go.